Well, it's recording again. Such as it is. There's an option? I don't even see a flashing rectangle. Where's the flashing rectangle? I think there is no flashing rectangle. And I don't see any advantage in hiding it. Wow. So I thought I'd take a little time and talk to you a little bit about your PowerPoint slides. We've already seen the 10-20-30 rule. The 10-20-30 rule says it's 10 slides, 20 minutes, and 30-point font. Me personally, I think if you're going to do an elevator speech, what you get is about 30 seconds. I think probably 10 seconds are used to describe the pain you solve, 10 seconds are used to describe your sustainable competitive advantage, and 10 seconds are used to describe your market and maybe even your societal impact. So beyond that 30 seconds, I don't think you have any time. So if I were going to do PowerPoints, I'd say it's so important to do some sort of an outline. Tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So you want to introduce the talk, and then I think it almost makes sense to try and build it like a pyramid, where the most important stuff comes right up at the top, and then you get into more and more detail and build your foundation. And so these tips, which are listed out in here, basically form the outline of the talk. So this is what I'm going to tell you. So I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you what I told you. So there. So outline. I do not do any more writing for books or for papers without an outline. I don't do talks without outlines. In fact, sometimes I'll do a talk and the only thing I have is an outline, and that's enough. And in fact, I don't really need a PowerPoint presentation to do a talk. I can just do videos, or do a quick demo, or show a prototype and describe why it's good and sustainable competitive advantage in market, and I'm there. That's it. The rest is questions, and that gets people hooked. And then I make sure I answer the question specifically. And if somebody says, what are your sales? I could say, none. It's a pre-production prototype. You're getting in on the ground floor. What an opportunity. If somebody says, well, who have you showed this to? Nobody, or maybe 10 people, or whatever, but they all signed NDAs. What's your sustainable competitive advantage? It could be a patent. Could be nobody knows how to do what I do. Could be secret sauce, trade secret. The business about spelling everything out, I think just main bullet points are sufficient. If you have more than 5 points on a slide, you got way too many. In terms of wordiness, I would just say avoid needless words. And that's sufficient. This idea that you're going to be able to write every single word out in a giant paragraph that got pasted in from somewhere else and you're going to read through the whole darn thing is absolutely wrong. You should never make something that looks like this. This is not what you do. Right? It's just dense. And you're tempted to read it. And that's not right. And so I could have taken this whole thing and said, simple bullets. That's how I summarize that whole thing. Just write simple bullets, 2 words, you're there. You're done. So here's something that might be better. The first point I want to make is just make 1 point. That's my point. Reading ahead, I really like reading ahead. I don't like this idea of being spoon-fed at a specific rate. That's not my style. I don't think there's anything wrong with animation. If you say it's distracting, I say because that's where I want your focus. So if the animation is an animation of the thing, the prototype, which you couldn't bring with you, but I can see it in action, that's great. I'd like to see that animation. Maybe it's something you can't build a prototype for. Oh, I've got a great way to do an emergency control coolant system. Here, let me show you this animation of a reactor having bubbly fluid flow in the containment vessel. A, you do not want me to build this reactor and show it to you in real life, right? And B, it's clear that the animation shows the basic principle. That once the core becomes exposed, the emergency control coolant system is going to spray it and keep Fukushima from happening. And so that's one of those things that might be real important and has great societal impact. This idea 10, 20, 30. It says 18-point font. A lot of people think of it as 18-point font. I say 30-point font because if you use 30-point font, you'll write less. Your bullet points will be simpler, and you'll be able to get across those points that you think are so important that you had to put them on your PowerPoint slides. Complicated fonts. I love the idea of using what's called a sans serif font. Sans serif fonts, they don't have curly pieces on their edges, right? They're just straight. So when you look at capitalize only when necessary, that's a sans serif font. No serifs on there at all. What about color? This one is blue on white. That's not bad. It's high contrast. It's really good if you're going to print, because typically you're going to print on white paper. And when you go to print something and if it's got a black background with white letters, it's going to use up all your toner. It's very bad. So I like the idea of using a very high contrast thing. I do not like the pastel at the bottom when it says occasionally. That's much harder to read. The pastels on the left, you don't even see them because your projector hasn't been equalized properly. So there's a whole big thing about the pastels on the left. The projector doesn't even pick it up. Projectors have 3 colors: red, green, and blue. White is the combination of all 3 colors together. Black is the absence of all 3 colors. So if you want to pick a color, it's red, green, blue, white, or black. And your projector can do that. And then you can go to 100% saturated red, green, or blue. This business about using a pastel makes no sense at all. Your color projector, your projectors are never calibrated. It's never a question of if they're calibrated. The answer is no, they're never calibrated. This business about using lots of different colors is so interesting. I love that there are so many different colors. I should write a computer program to generate PowerPoint slides with many, many different colors. In fact, I like the idea of random fonts and random font sizes. I think if you did that completely random, it would be really interesting. Annoying color changes. You know, that's really interesting. They're really annoying. I mean, this is just so wow. And there's a color here. You can't see it. I wonder if I could format the background color and make it blue. Now you can sort of see it. There's something there. You couldn't even see it because it's got the wrong color. Right? This color here on the left, that's supposed to be sort of green. Bad color. Simple. I like simple. If you put like scales in the background, where balanced scales, that just is distracting to me. I don't like backgrounds at all. I like to turn them off. This is real interesting. I like this. Avoid backgrounds that are distracting. Well, maybe that's the point, to show you what not to do. I'm sort of liking this idea that you should show something that's so grotesque that you should never do it. But nobody would ever do this, right? You'd never do this. It looks really distracting. So then what about graphs? You want to title your graphs. Oh, it's so important to put on units. If you don't have units on your next to your numbers, somebody in the audience will say, "What units are those?" They'll always ask what the units are. So, avoid that question. Put the units on the graph. Show them the scales. What are these numbers? 20.4 blue balls in April? What is that? The number I sold? The number of returns? Is that how much it weighs in kilograms? Maybe that's how many I can fit in my mouth. I have no idea what orifice I would put those balls in, but I don't think I should be just putting up numbers without some sort of indication as to what it means. Maybe this is my profit in millions. Ooh, I made $20.4 million in April by selling blue balls and $31.6 million by selling red balls. Ooh. So I have no idea what these numbers mean. They're ridiculous. Maybe the blue balls are calorie count balls. It's candy. So there's 20 calories in the blue ball in April, down from the 90 calories in March. It's items sold. So key. So key. So now I can show the sale. I sold 90 blue balls in March. And isn't it nice that the bar graph is kind of bluish and the bar graph for the red ball is kind of reddish? The key is consistent. It's visualization. Right? We're sort of visualizing sales. There was a run on blue balls in March. Why is that? All of a sudden that became much more obvious, isn't it? You don't see 90 in March as easily as you do right here. That makes it stand right out. And it says that is an aberrant number. Very different. What about this business about tick marks? With the idea that you can actually see the 0.6 or the 0.4. That's very busy looking, very distracting compared with, let's say, that. So choosing the right, I may have lost the round-off error around 30, for example, but it certainly seems to me like I got the basic idea that there was a run on blue balls in March. Yeah, colors are illogical, right? This has been red and blue. Now it's yellow and something else. Is that green? Sort of. Greenish. And where's the title? This says items sold. There's no title here. Proofreading is so important. That spelling mistake in spelling is pretty bad. People see that stuff. They'll call you on it. They say, you spelled spelling wrong. Omit needless words. I think that the best thing you can do with PowerPoints is less is more. Just reduce the number of bullets, capture the basic idea, make sure that the topic is right up front and at the top, the primary topic that you're trying to discuss for every single thought. and really one thought per slide. There should only be one basic, idea. And I say, just write the ideas as a bullet, one idea after another. And then you can just talk about the ideas. And then it serves to prompt you to talk about the idea. So maybe one idea is the pain. Another idea is the competitive advantage. Another idea might be the market. A third idea might be, or we up to four. The fourth idea is the impact, right? You got a market, but think of all the people that you're going to help with your idea, societal impact. So these are kinds of things that you might like to just say, okay, and this is what I'm going to talk about, and that'll be the elevator speech, and then I'm done. Are there any questions? I'm ending my talk with the adding. What do you think about PowerPoint slides? Do they help or do they hurt? Depends. Well, I gotta say that at the end of the day, PowerPoint slides are one of those things we seem to use a lot of. I've been invited to give a talk this week, and I'm asked, my first question, is there a place for me to go to plug in my projector and to do my PowerPoint? Oh no, we don't want you to do PowerPoint, we just want you to come and give a talk. Scary, right? So what am I going to talk about? Do you want an abstract? Do you want to, we'll take an abstract, we'll take a bio, but that's it. And so I'm going to have to go and really talk on my own. And that's key. I'll have to be able to think on my feet and deal with the issues that people bring to the table. How would you do a talk if you didn't have PowerPoints? Let's assume that you had to get in front of an audience and give a talk on whatever topic. What would you do? How would you prepare the talk? Have you ever had to talk in front of others without PowerPoints? Really? Oh, I think it would be so good for you to stand here in front of us and talk about your thesis without PowerPoints. How will you prepare? You'll prepare by explaining? I'll tell you how I prepare. I do an outline. That's what I do. Right? So I think about the outline, and maybe what I'll do is I'll even bring the outline with me. I'll write it on a piece of paper, right? So how would you do the outline? Let's say somebody said you needed to do an outline. What's the main point of your talk? It's the pitch, right? The elevator pitch, right? Whatever it is you're going to do. And what are the components of the elevator pitch? First thing, the pain, right? The second thing, sustainable competitive advantage, the advantage, right? What's the third thing? How about a market, right? What's the fourth thing? About societal implications. How it's going to help people. I got these four things I want to talk about. I could even leave off societal implications if I like. So now I say to you, I can do this for any topic. Let's assume that I wanted to talk about engineering entrepreneurship. Right? The pain is we've got a bunch of business plans and they don't seem to work. And that's because we got business majors partnering with business majors. What a problem. But I have a solution. Every single business plan competition team has to have an engineer. Nobody should be partnering business people with business people. Biggest mistake they ever made. They should partner with engineering because that's where the learning is. And because they'll be able to create a prototype. And because with a prototype you've overcome the added risk of maybe not being able to implement this wonderful idea that you have. The sustainable competitive advantage is your ability to innovate. That is your only sustainable competitive advantage. If you can't out-innovate the other person, you're sunk. And that's because of outsourcing. So if you're going to be able to do something that's better than the next guy, it's out-innovate and commercialize them. That is your only sustainable competitive advantage. And what's your market? It's the world. 50% of my Kickstarter project sales were international, not in this country. And so when I look to try and accommodate them, first thing I do is I say international shipping, extra $9. Now you could tell me, but it costs way more to ship to Italy. I'll say yes, but it all averages it out. And then you could say, and the post office raised their rates to $10.50. I'll say yes, but I'll swallow the difference because I have over a 50% profit margin, which is part of my advantage. I have to have some kind of pricing power. I can't just compete on cost. So I have to build in substantial profit margin in order to be able to make up for errors, problems in production. Let's assume I said to you, oh, well, I found a nice source for Kobicon 3.5 millimeter stereo connectors. Kobicon is a house brand from Mouser Electronics, but I don't like to buy from them. I don't like house brands. They charge too much. I'm going to find it, and I found it, and it's on eBay. So I now bought 400 3.5 millimeter stereo connectors. Guess what? The printed circuit board footprints are all wrong. So now I have 400 connectors and they don't fit on the circuit boards, which I already had made at $1.65 each, thank you very much. If I didn't have a 50% profit margin, I couldn't afford to swallow the mistake without losing money. You know, when you make substitutes in production, that's when things really go wrong. Imagine if I just threw in a new inductor, that cheaper inductor, and then it just didn't work properly and the filters just worked wrong. And then I went into production with that. What a mistake. That's a real big mistake, because then you got returns. Nothing is going to kill your business faster than returns. And not just your business, but your reputation. And a reputation is not a coin which is easily minted. So you've got sustainable competitive advantage. You try and compete on cost by reducing cost, but that can get you into real trouble if you don't watch it. And then there's this other thing, and I think this goes to the question of how you do your implementation. An entrepreneur can't do everything themselves, but an entrepreneur has to get everything done. And so what that means is you've got to be able to find people who can work for you and get stuff done efficiently, or else you're going to end up trying to do things you're just not good at. Making a video for your Kickstarter project, doing your social media marketing when you don't have a Facebook account, trying to do some kind of a printed circuit board when you're not really good at printed circuit board design or something like this. Maybe writing the software when you've got too much software to write. You've got to find people to help, and that's so key. So being able to network properly and getting people to help is absolutely critical to getting a prototype out the door. So when I think about the things that I need to be able to talk about it, let's say an entrepreneur's breakfast club, which is where I'm going to on Thursday, I can just do an outline like this: pain, advantage, market, and go through all three of these things, and then talk about the basic problems of prototyping and networking to get things done. And that's key. And now I'm prepared for the talk because I've got my three basic points. pain, advantage, and marketing. And that's how I prepare for a talk. And I'd love to see you guys give that talk. So I'm going to make that a homework assignment for next week. Give the talk. Now here's the interesting thing about this talk. Okay, you can sit at the microphone and give the talk the same way I do, right? But there won't be any PowerPoints. So let's do that. A talk with no PowerPoints. It's torture. No, Professor Lyon, don't make us do it. Yes. A talk without PowerPoints. Now, it's perfectly okay for you to write out your notes. Or maybe to make some sort of outline. In fact, I would encourage you to do an outline. So what I would say is maybe it's this way. Oh, no, it's under student work, create new assignment. I guess it's called homework, right? Title, the talk. Okay. Oh, it's about your stuff. We're not going to talk about entrepreneurship. Let's see. The talk. So you're going to give us the talk. It's going to take you a couple or 3 hours to do it. Yes, you can upload the assignment if you're going to be doing this by PowerPoint. If you're doing it by PowerPoint, there won't be PowerPoints, but there'll be audio. So we'll play the audio. What's this? Display grade distribution? Yes. Display assignment on. It's required. Oh, there it goes. Prepare to give a talk about your thesis without PowerPoints. Use an outline and submit it electronically, but no PowerPoints. If you are a distance learning student, use a older version of PowerPoint to record your presentation. And Alfredo, I don't think your PowerPoint worked at all. We weren't able to get your PowerPoint to work. So you better save it to a different format because it's just not working here. And it's due next week. What do you think of that? Very fun. You should be able to give a presentation that includes all the basic points, but there are things that I like to think of, and that is the pain, right? What's the other one? The advantage, and then what? Marketing, the market, pain, advantage, and market. So if you're pitching this as a product, I think you want to be able to have an elevator speech, having those three things available to you for whatever it is that you're pitching is very important. What is the market for this cosmic shield anyway? Yeah. Oh, it's a very small market, and that means you can charge a lot of money. NASA will have to spend big bucks on the cosmic shield, right? Because otherwise all their astronauts will come back crispy. I mean, it's kind of like the market for, oh, the assignment will be hidden and students will not see the grades. Is it okay now? Okay. So that's looking good. Alright then. It's a little small because I had to zoom out in order to see the entire text field on the interface. Well, that's what I have for you guys today.